Hello, BookTube. Well, it's Monday, and so begins another round in the arena. Months and months ago, Matthew at Mayberry Book Club made a video out of the blue. Has Steve read it? Where he looked at the books on the shelves in his tiny house and asked, has Steve read these things? And he made a list. And he asked that question, and it caught on. A whole bunch of people wanted to know. They looked at their own bookshelves and said, has Steve read all of these books? What does he think of them if he's read them? And that first season of Has Steve Read It ran its course and then sort of petered out. I had a blast. I made response videos to everybody whose videos I saw. And then out of the blue, Daniel at Guilty Feet just recently revived the whole thing for season two. Season 2 of Has Steve Read It. In which, once again, people, including a lot of booktubers who didn't have channels when season 1 was making the rounds, pull down 8 books off their shelves and ask, hold them up, talk about them a little, and ask if I have read them. And rough rules have come into being. The 8 being one of them. Let's choose 8 books. Another one being let's choose books that are either in English or translated into English. Another would be, these aren't extraneous picks. You're not going to Goodreads or Amazon to find the world's most obscure book on lug nuts. It has to be a book that you've either read or that you own and plan to read, rather than just an a-hole attempt to stump somebody. This is all in fun, right? The books have to have a chance. A couple of people who've made response videos have pointed out that is a tough line to walk, because I've done a huge amount of reading. And if you're going to pick a book that has anything like a sort of a common distribution, then you run a real risk that I will have read it. Whereas if you pick a book that had no common distribution, then maybe you're verging into unfair niche territory stumper picks. I agree. I admit it's a tough line to walk, but you're all doing a fantastic job. So there have been a number of entries, but although the entries have been endlessly fascinating, a number of people pointed out in the first season of Has Steve Read It, and people are pointing out in the second season, that one of the fascinations here is that this is just us talking about maybe 8 of the books from your collection that you might not have held up and talked about otherwise. I love that. I think it's fascinating. And in addition to all of that back and forth, I'm also gaining some bits and pieces for my own TBR, books that I'm hearing about that I now want to read because people whose reading I know and respect are holding them up and saying, I really like this. So we have another entry. We have a whole week's worth of entries. We have the entry for today is from Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. A great booktube channel. I'll leave a link to him and all the other contestants in season 2 of Has Steve Read It. Although I think that's not quite necessary. I'm pretty sure that Jim himself has made a playlist of season 2. I have not learned how to make playlists. I'm sure it's very easy to do. Certainly my channel is long since overdue to have a ton of playlists, but instead I haven't done it. I should learn how to do that, but I think he's done it. I'm pretty sure I'll leave a link to his response video, and I'm pretty sure that will show you a link to his playlist. But one way or another, he has come out with 8 books, and we're going to see how he does. Now, let's keep in mind the stats. They're fairly brutal. They're fairly blood-drenched, but let's keep them in mind. The stats are not hard to top. We have had 4 entries so far in season 2, 4 episodes. And of those 4 episodes, the highest has been 2 beans. A bean being a success, a book that I have not read. The highest has been 2. There have been 2 at 1 and 2 at 2. So there's a vast field of beans still out there to be harvested. Will Jim do it? He certainly starts off his video in the right way, in a very auspicious way, because he doesn't start off just by gassing on about boring old books. Instead, he starts off with adorable footage of his little dog. We got footage of Abby. I'm not sure, but I think this might be the first footage of her that we've ever had on his channel. And not only is that a very good omen for a Has Steve Read It response video to start with dog footage, but also Abby is mostly beagle. And it doesn't get any better than that. So has that lent Jim the luck he needs to pull ahead? Let's see. Let's dive right in. The first book on his list is The Dead Stay Dumb by James Hadley Chase. And he points out in his video it's a crime thriller, and it's from an extremely prolific author. And he points out that author never really had much of a heyday in America. He had more of a heyday overseas, where Jim is. I shouldn't say that he is in America. He is not. He has more sense than that. And it's true. But I was in a used bookstore in, I want to say, Madison, Wisconsin, of all places, and came across just an entire shelf double stacked of this guy's mass market paperbacks. I don't even think they were American mass market paperbacks, but I stood there in the shop and read 100 pages of one of them, and I was absolutely hooked. I got them all. I made an offer for them. I got them all. So this is a yes. It's unlikely, but it's a yes. It's certainly not a niche category. There are certain subcategories in these videos that we have to watch out for. Niche categories where the maker of the video is worried on the video. You're all so wonderful. The maker of the video is worried on camera. But I don't know. This might be too obscure. He can skip it if it is. Most of your instincts are proving quite good in that regard. And there's another subcategory of response items, and that is the facepalm. That is when not only have I read the book, but I am amazed that the person would think I hadn't. That the person would put a certain book on the list thinking there was a chance that I hadn't read it. Those are facepalms. Now, there's also a much rarer category, the multiple facepalm, from that gif that goes around from the Naked Gun, where not only is it just beyond the pale for you to think that I haven't read the book, but also that there are extremely good real-world positive, facts and evidence indicators that I have read the book. No one has done the ultimate multiple facepalm, the multiple facepalm where you facepalm until your head falls off, would be somebody holding up a book for a Has Steve Read It video that not only is there a lot of evidence to show that I have read, but where I am blurbed on the paperback that they're holding up. That's the ultimate facepalm, and that hasn't happened yet. But the next one on Jim's list is Mary Barton, the debut novel by Elizabeth Gaskell. And that's not a multiple facepalm, I think, because I've never written about Mary Gaskell, but it is certainly a facepalm. It is certainly a facepalm. The idea... I'm not Mary Gaskell's biggest fan. I've said that a few times when she comes up on this channel. She has absolutely devoted readers on BookTube, including in this little neighborhood of BookTube. People whose videos I love, people whose reading opinions I really respect. I'm not discounting that at all. It's just she's never worked for me in quite that way. But she is still a canonical author. She is still a major canonical author. Of course, I've read every book she's written, including this one. So that is... a yes. So we were 2 yeses so far. Jim has yet to score even one bean, but we're going to push on. The next one is Solitary by Albert Woodfox. And this is a yes. It's not quite a facepalm, but it is a caution. I think Jim probably had that caution when he picked it, because it's a book about a horrible miscarriage of justice in the American criminal justice system, a man kept in solitary confinement, which most international courts view as cruel and unusual punishment, for 40 years, and knowing the whole time that he was innocent, but eventually you lose your mind, or you come up with really innovative strategies to hold on to a thin thread of sanity. And it's not so much for its subject matter that it comes close to being a facepalm as for its publication time. This is a fairly new book, and it had widespread critical reviews. And as a number of people have pointed out in their response videos, that is my beat. That is what I do. So, yeah, I have read this. It moved me. It infuriated me. But it is still a yes. And then we'll move on to his fourth one, which was a delight to see. That's one of the little side pleasures of these Has Steve Read It videos are people holding up books that you've never seen anyone hold up on BookTube before. And this next one is The Walker's Guide to Outdoor Clues and Signs by Tristan Gooley. And it's a yes. I read it and really liked it. I wish I had my copy. It's kind of what the title says, but it's a beautiful production and beautifully written in an understated kind of way, but beautifully written. And it's one of those. It's an outdoor guide. What tracks look like? What does scat look like? What clues can you glean from the direction that water is flowing, or from the nature of growth on a tree, or something like that? It's an outdoor guide to outdoor tips and tricks, outdoor common sense, outdoor stuff that might keep you alive if you wander away from your group, or your small plane goes down, or whatever. And it's one of the few guides like that. There are a million of them. How to Stay Alive in the Woods, being in America the most famous one for a long time, was a book called How to Stay Alive in the Woods. And this one, The Walker's Guide to Outdoor Clues and Signs, is one of the only ones that I've actually carried with me when walking around outside in the wilderness. Usually I just commit that stuff to memory. But this book I carried around with me because in addition to being useful, it's also good reading. I haven't had a copy in forever. Not in forever. I had a copy that I think that the last copy that I had was destroyed while it was being used in the wilderness. And I want to say that it was a porcupine that just waddled into camp and ate it. Because porcupines have a tendency to do that. They're not really afraid of anything. And they're kind of curious in a dim-witted kind of way, and they'll eat just about anything. But I don't know that for sure. I might be feeding that in. One way or another, I know I walked into the country with a copy, battered copy, but still, and walked out without it. So something happened. but anyway, that one's a yes. And then Jim points out that his the second half of his list, at least he didn't make 8 per half or 10 per half. He stuck to 8 books total. That's great. But his second half, he dedicates it to the beautiful country of Georgia. Not the beautiful state of Georgia here in the United States, but the beautiful country of Georgia. He gives you a little bit of detail about the amazing physical beauty of the country. And I got the suspicion that he could have said a lot more on that subject. But he mentions, well, I have it jotted down here. He mentions that UNESCO has designated Tbilisi as the World Book Capital for 2021. I didn't know that the World Book Capital changed from location to location from year to year. What a thrill that must be for any city to get that designation. That's wonderful. So he, in honor of that designation for 2021, he centers his last 4 candidates on the country of Georgia. Naturally, I felt a little bit of split loyalty. I might not otherwise. I have traveled in the country of Georgia and had a wonderful time doing it. But not only did the state of Georgia in the United States do what was right in the 2020 election, in the 2020 presidential election, their state officials did what was right. Not only that, but also their voting against massive voter suppression and gerrymandering managed to return 2 Democratic representatives to Congress, allowing the new Democratic president to come into power with at least the tiny ability to get a few things done. That is, in my opinion, the last time that will happen anywhere in the country. Republican, neo-Nazi controlled legislatures in every state in the Union where they have any kind of power are feverishly introducing voter suppression laws on steroids. Not just the usual voter suppression, but stuff literally designed to make it impossible for non-Trump supporters to vote at all. The long game here for these neo-Nazis is we want our Führer, we want our leader back in power in 2024, and we want to make it not only impossible, but maybe a crime for anyone to vote for anyone else. Not Republican. We hate Republicans as much as we hate Democrats. It's Trump that we want. Him alone. Him. He is who we worship. He is what we want. And we won't allow the globalists to stab us in the back again. And so laws like that are going up all over the country. Not in the handful of sane states. Nothing like that will happen in Massachusetts, for instance. Nothing like that will happen in Vermont. But Georgia, the state of Georgia, I am grateful to the state for what it did in 2020, but I don't think it will ever be able to do that again. And I'm also grateful to it for another reason, which is that I am a book section editor in Georgia. I am the book section editor of the monthly in-print newspaper, Big Canoe News, which has a lovely 2-page book section. And it's a wonderful job. I haven't done it in a long, long time, not since before a lot of you were born. But I, in the meantime, I've certainly, kept my hand in with book editor positions online, journals online. But there's something about a print newspaper that shows up with a thump on your doorstep, and you can be part of that magic. For only $30 a month, you can subscribe for a year of Big Canoe News. One big, multicolored, jam-packed issue every month. That, in addition to everything else, it has lots of local coverage, as you'd expect, but it also has lots of other stuff, too. Great opinion writing, lots and lots of great photography, great national and international news sections. But in addition to that, right at the end of the news section every month is the books section, edited by yours truly. And it's a lot of fun. They do a beautiful job. So in addition to looking good, it also reads good. And so naturally, my loyalties are a bit split here. But Jim's come up with books about Georgia, the country, not the state. The first one of those is The Girl King by Meg Clothier. This is about Queen Tamar, and it is a yes. And it is an unlikely yes. It is even more unlikely than the James Hadley chase. It came to me purely by happenstance, I think under the auspices of the Historical Novel Review Society. I don't think I would ever have seen it otherwise. And I really liked it. I thought it's historical fiction. I thought it was really, really good. The next one is Georgia in the Mountains of Poetry by Peter Nasmyth, and it's a no. I've heard about this book. I've heard it praised, not only in the country of Georgia, but also just elsewhere. People said it's a really good book, a really good sort of evocation and introduction to Georgia. So it's been kind of on my list floating around, and now it's codified. Now I know that I want it because of this video. That's what I was talking about. This adds to my TBRs in a wonderful way. But it's a no. I haven't actually read Georgia in the Mountains of Poetry. And the next pick of his, also Georgia related, is The Pear Field by Nana Ekvtimishvili. It rolled right off Jim's tongue, but it's not rolling right off mine. But one way or another, he mentions that this was translated into English and was longlisted for the Booker International. But I haven't read it. I don't think I've ever even heard about it before. I don't follow the Booker quite as religiously as some other booktubers do, but it sounds interesting. I've never read it. So Jim is now up to 2 beans. And the heat is on because he's only got 1 book left. He's at 2 beans now. He is tied for the lead with the 2 people who have 2 beans. And he is left in the dust, in ignominious defeat, the 2 people who have 1 bean. But what will happen next? It's all up to the next choice. The 8th choice is a book that I gather, he's not the only person I've heard this from. I really do need to read this book, because I gather that it's something of a massive popular favorite, that the characters have sort of entered into the common parlance and the popular folklore. The book is called Granny, Iliko, Illarion, and I, and it is written by Nodar Dumbadze, and it's a no. And it feels conspicuous. I have heard about this book before, and it has an English language translation, at least one, because Jim holds it up in his video. So I know that it's had at least one English language translation. That might be tough to come across. He mentions it as being done during the Soviet era. So not only might it not be easy to come across, but might not be worth doing the hunting for the translation. Might not be any good. It kind of makes me wonder. I know this thing is beloved. It kind of makes me wonder why some enterprising editor in America hasn't commissioned a new translation of this thing with a great introduction, and maybe notes and whatnot. I think it would be an introduction to a kind of literature that American readers are more and more willing to do. We've seen on this channel that translated literature it crops up in my mailbox a lot more than it ever did 20 years ago. And it shows up in book review sections all over the place with far greater frequency. I think the American reader is getting more international, just a bit, but still. So this seems like a natural candidate for a brand new edition. I'll have to hope that someday it happens. But in the meantime, it is a no. I have not actually read it. Feels like a conspicuous omission. 2 of these do. There's Georgia in the Mountains of Poetry also does. Both of those. Jim's not the first person I've heard about them from. So they're both going on some sort of nebulous, far range TBR. But that's my plans. The immediate concentration of this video is that we have a new winner. Jim's total is 3 beans. That's not a stellar number, but it's better than 2. We now have a winner. No one is sharing this spot. In the Has Steve Read It Season 2, we now have a front runner, someone with 3 beans. Door is still open. Lots more candidates out there and more videos popping up all the time. Will we beat 3 beans tomorrow? Will someone tie for 3 beans? Can we get to 4? Halfway to the coveted 8 beans? Can we do that? We shall see. I have no shortage of candidates, so we will see. But that's where things stand for now. We have a new winner from the lovely country of Georgia. So I'm going to wrap this up for now, but the thrill continues tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.